Selectmen meeting, Monday, February 22nd. It is 7:02. Call the meeting to order. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. The meeting is also accessible by remote participation. It is a Zoom meeting. The phone number for the Zoom meeting is 646-558-8656. The meeting ID is 986-7946-3848. And the passcode for the meeting is 927319. Thank you. Announcements for tonight. There is tomorrow, February 22nd, starting at 6 p.m., the Cable Advisory Committee is seeking ideas for the public education government funds, things that the town collects, the public utilities collect the money on behalf of the town so that the town can have sort of some broadcast capability, local access, and things that we could maybe put on there. The committee is looking for ideas. So that's to broaden the scope of the PEG usage. Glenn, do you want to talk any more about that, or?
No, we're looking if people are there to have some participation, to try to get more meetings. We have open space now. We have the Board of Selectmen. We have the Board of Health. We'll try to get the planning board. We've reached out to the library with their tremendous programming they have to try to be able to get it out on stuff. We're trying to get it to Facebook Live. We have other programming on there. We're just looking for ideas from committees and stuff, so we could just expand our network and have it more local.
The town election is Monday, May 3rd. Nomination papers are still available through the town clerk, and they are due back at the town clerk's office on with the signatures on March 15th. The annual and special town meetings have been moved to later in the year so that the weather will be slightly better, and that will be Saturday, May 22nd.
Yep.
And as usual, to remind everybody to stay on board with town announcements, wnewbury.org/subscribe. And also, I do notice that there is a Red Cross blood drive tomorrow at the annex.
Code is 927-319.
The
Right, thanks.
first order of business updates related to COVID-19. First of all, the everyone that participated and related to helped out with the vaccination clinics that have taken place, first at the Newbury Council on Aging, and then at Senior Center, and then also at the Page School. Everything was extremely well run. All the volunteers from the town did a great job. So the town really stepped up, and everyone involved. It was a lot of work, and everyone should be commended. So having said that, the Commonwealth has, in its wisdom, decided that it's more efficient to deliver the vaccine at larger sites that can do more people during a day. So they don't want to start any new vaccine programs at local smaller venues such as the Page School, unless they can do 750 people a day, 5 days a week. So that's quite a serious undertaking. And so the towns and cities and towns, Newburyport, Amesbury, West Newbury, Rowley, and I don't need to name them all, but right around here, the collaborative that we have created, we're trying to hopefully change the governor's mind on this. Certainly for people that are less mobile, getting to Danvers or getting to Fenway Park, and negotiating a large venue like that isn't quite as user-friendly as perhaps it is at the Page School. So we'd like to change the governor's mind on that by perhaps, just if you feel strongly about that too, contact the governor's office, write a Senator Tarr and Representative Mira, both on board with supporting us and the local venues, which we feel we've done a great job at, and it's helpful to the people that live in our area. So that's where the situation stands. But at the moment, other than completing the doses of the second dose for people that have already received a dose at these venues, at the moment there will not be additional ones at the local one. Is that correct, Angus? Am I saying it all right? Or
That is all correct.
Yeah.
There's a meeting within the region tomorrow afternoon, including the mayors of Newburyport and Amesbury. And the question is, can we get to that threshold of 750 doses a day for 5 days a week if we collectively look at, who needs to be vaccinated and so forth, and do we have the capacity to do that? So there is, we haven't given up on it, and so we've got a meeting tomorrow afternoon on that topic. I also do want to say, I think people, especially senior citizens in town, are hopefully aware they've gotten the survey that was sent out by mail, and we continue to compile the data that comes into a database that our Board of Health, Council on Aging, other town staff, and volunteers use to contact seniors and basically serve a matchmaker function when we become aware of vacancies or openings in vaccine clinics. And that does not just relate to clinics that we would either run or co-sponsor here in the region. That would also include openings we may become aware of at the Danvers site or even at the regional pharmacies, because sometimes certain number of spots are set aside for certain towns. And if the Board of Health is made aware of that, sometimes we might get very little notice, like a day or even honestly a couple of hours. So in that case, we continue to rely on that database to make calls to people to help get them appointments. So it continues to be important for people, if they have not returned that survey, to go ahead and do so, and to know that we do rely on that as an active resource.
Just, another note, just to clarify, Archie, there are no more first doses, but there's a March 6th clinic that is a second dose clinic, and that, as I understand, is still going on.
correct?
Yeah.
Anything else, Angus? Can we move on? You want to say? You good?
That's all I
Okay.
was looking to cover.
Jeff, do you want to introduce Ms. Cancel?
Sure.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, Glenda. I'd like to have her appointed as a reserve officer for the department. She currently lives in Drake with her children and fiance. She works for the Essex County Sheriff's Department as a corrections officer. Currently, she's been there for 10 years. She's done well in all steps of the hiring process for West Newbury, passed the background check. And so she's good to go. She's also bilingual, and she has a lot of experience dealing with people in difficult situations at the jail. So I think should fit well in town.
Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So Glenda, we're all hoping that that your goal is eventually to become a full-time officer, because we need to continue to fill out our staff here. So
That is nice to meet you all.
great.
So Rick, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Glenda Cancel as a reserve officer for the police department.
I would second that. And the only discussion was, do we need to have a end date on that, or is it fine?
No, you're correct, Glenn. And that would be just as we have with others, that would just be through the end of the fiscal year. But Glenda, just so you understand, it's routine that the board would reappoint at the end of each fiscal year for the subsequent fiscal year. So even if there's a term of just 3 months or 3 or 4 months, that's not anything other than just a procedural issue that we bring forward the whole slate of reserve officers every June for reappointment.
Understood.
So I guess I revised my motion then to be from essentially from today's date until the end of the fiscal year, June 30th.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thank you, Glenda. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
And Glenda, before you leave, Glenda, just Mike, if you could just speak to the swearing in.
Yeah, but I've already contacted Jeff Durant. We got an appointment scheduled for tomorrow. Hope to
Perfect.
see you then, Glenda, and we'll have your oath ready, and we'll take care of that. So it's already been scheduled.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Very well. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Mike, is that oath still, or is it changed that part of the oath is that she can't pull over any selectmen when they're speeding, or is that?
That's in the addendum.
Okay. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Our next item is a review of the proposed use of the Wetlands Fund to supplement the Conservation Commission operating budget. So the who wants to speak to that? I don't think I have enough information. Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So this is a fund that's got monies coming into it from time to time and has had next to no activity of money coming out of it. And this is something that, as you'll recall, last year during the budget process, the commission had initially proposed 5 hours toward a land agent position, and that was ultimately approved in the budget process at 2 hours. And I believe the commission's intent is to increase that number of hours, but in order to make that budget neutral, they're proposing to draw funding from the Wetlands Fund. And so the advice that I've given them based on the IGR from Department of Revenue is that the use of that fund to support hours for the land agent responsibilities would go be, and this goes back a couple of rounds of correspondence between myself and the commission, but that would not be an eligible use of the Wetlands Fund because it can only be used for direct responsibilities associated with enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act. So what would be allowable is what is now proposed, which is to actually offset some of the budgeted hours for the agent for his core responsibilities as the conservation agent, which would then allow more time to be spent toward the land agent responsibilities payable from the operating budget. Does that make sense? At least does that propose, does my summary make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, okay, so that was an added
Yes.
summary? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
What kind of documentation
What's changed?
is needed to say, who would say, well, you're really not doing, in other words, I understand they couldn't be doing, say, trail maintenance because that's not related to wetlands protection. So how do you delineate the hours that are actually attributable to this particular fund? How do you cut those out?
Well, I think what we're proposing is that the the trail agent hours are going to be tracked separately on his timesheet. So that's one way that the appropriate fund will be used for that. I mean, the way that it's happening, because Bert has an afternoon job, he's been doing all his trail work on the weekends. So he comes here on the weekend and that's all he does is the trail work. So there's kind of an easy split between his time as an agent and his time as the trail agent or the land agent.
Okay. How much is in that fund? Do we know?
I don't have a current amount, but when I spoke with Stephanie last month, it was about 89,000. I mean, it's quite a bit of money. Yeah. I mean, I averaged it since 2015. I mean, we had 1 year where we had $20,000 come in. I think that was with the cottages maybe, or Drake's Landing. But without that, it averages about $8,000 a year in revenue. So by putting 3 hours a week of Bert's time, I think with, burden costs, we'd be up around $5,000 a year. So that seems like a comfortable amount to allocate for this.
Okay.
Okay.
And the intent of, I just wanted to follow up. The intent is at some point we'd like to have an administrative position added to the department. I mean, we're currently the only department that doesn't have administrative help. And so this is kind of a way to set the stage for that. And hopefully we could just continue to pay from this fund. And with an administrative position, we could probably have 5 or 6 hours a week for the same money.
This is actually, Archie, can I speak to it?
Yeah.
This is actually what I hate about, I don't know if hate is the right word, dislike about town government, that halfway through when we say no to something, we try to then increase the hours through a different fund that's not being utilized properly. And then all of a sudden we start now with administrative fund out of some fund that's really not supposed to be that way, but can be used that way. And then it's going to turn into something else. I think what has changed? I understand what the future is of taking money out of. I like to have departments stand alone so that people can understand what it really costs to run a town. So if we need to increase his hours and we need administration, somebody in that office, then that should be made at our annual town meeting. So I'm not for or against like the aspect of it, but I haven't seen any compelling things that why we need to do it. And now we have a fund that was supposed to be used for wetlands. Now we can move it around and then try to make it used for something else. I'm going to vote no on it just because of that. Because I don't see what has changed that now we have to increase his hours. You know what I mean? I say, let it stand on its merits. Let's bring it to the spring town meeting and our budgetary thing and say, hey, listen, these are the reasons why we need to increase his hours. And this is what we need to do. We want to have an administrator to be able to do it. And those are the reasons why we need to do it. We're going to be more efficient. We need to do it this. And that's what it's going to cost taxpayers, not try to indirectly pay it through a different fund that wasn't meant for it. That's my point.
Glenn, I'm going to speak to that a little bit. I have a little bit different take on it. The Concom originally came to us a year ago suggesting that 5 hours was an appropriate number, or they believed 5 hours was an appropriate number. And I guess I'll say I stood alone in suggesting that I thought it was in fact important to support the position somewhat. And we agreed on 2 hours as a test. And
with backup. I haven't seen any backup. Where's the backup?
With 2 hours as a test. And based on conversations I've had, 2 hours allows a certain amount, but not really to make progress on the trails that we do have. We own what? The town owns, 500-600 acres of open space that, designated recreational areas. By the time you put all the pieces together, Pipe Stave, Mill Pond, River Bend, the area around Page School, Mullen Woods, Brake Hill, and we don't do anything, or we've historically done nothing to maintain the trail network that exists there. And there is a significant trail network. So in this case, the Concom's perspective, as I understand it, is that after a year with 2 hours a week, they're not making any headway, or they're making minimal.
But we haven't had a year.
Yeah,
And there was
Yeah, there was it's 6 months. We did an evaluation after 6 months, which was in January.
And where is that evaluation?
It was an internal evaluation. I mean, we can provide documentation. The
Because
agent has been providing Angus quarterly reports. He developed a 6-month report for me, which I discussed with the Open Space Committee.
Rick, you're making my argument. So we made a decision last spring, right? And then let them make the documentation going forward during the budgeting time when we do this type of stuff in the spring. And then I would support that, but not halfway through and using some other fund. And then it gets, in my eyes, and I'm not saying this is nefarious. I'm not saying that it's not warranted. I'm just saying the way we're going about it, I don't like. So and I agree with everything you just said, Rick. So during spring, when they come back with the proper documentation and say, hey guys, you guys didn't support this, but this is what happened this year with 2 hours. And this is the reason why we need 5 hours and we need an administrator. If it's all backed up and I agree with it, but not take it out of another fund that then might dry up. And then we have to fund that some other way in the future. It's better to understand how much it really costs to run the town when we're running it rather than taking it away from other funds. That's my point. I'm not saying it's not warranted. I'm not saying it's not warranted.
Yeah, I continue to not agree with that, Glenn. Essentially, we have what is effectively a stranded fund right now. You know, we have roughly $90,000 stranded, and there's no use for it. So now there is a use for it if the funds are applied properly. And the Concom has 6 months of experience demonstrating that what has been allocated for trails is not sufficient. So it's a way to use existing funds that are stranded and to get more functionality out of the trail stewardship.
I would agree with that. If you're going to say,
wait a second.
Yep.
As you recall, in 2010, when there was the financial crisis, the Conservation Commission did use that money for the conservation agent's salary at that point. So we stopped doing that, but it's not like this hasn't been done before. It was used for that at a much greater extent, I might add, than this proposal.
Yeah, and I think we stopped using it because we didn't think it was the proper way to do it, and we should probably put it into the budget rather than doing out of here. So you're saying that wetlands in town that this was intended for, Rick, we can't figure out how to spend this money? Mike, is that true?
Well, actually, I just so everyone's clear, I think the proposal is to use some of the funds to pay what is currently the operating budget for the conservation agent's responsibilities for wetlands, which would have the effect of freeing up some of that operating budget. But I just want to make sure that's clear.
But are we in the business of spending funds on operating budgets? I thought we didn't want to do that. Like that's like spending free cash on operating budgets. I thought that was frowned upon.
Well, Glenn, it's a fund that grows every year. So if we don't do something with it, I guess the end limit is infinity. I mean,
Rick, I can understand. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not even saying the proposal. I just don't like the funding mechanism because this is how you become. This is how even like past experiences with the police department. This is how monsters, in not in a bad word, like they become, because then all of a sudden, I look 5 years down the road when that fund is not being able now to pay for the administrator and the extra hours. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, where do we get those funds now? Now it's better just to kind of, if it's going to be an operating expense that's going to occur every year, I would prefer it to be in the operating budget. That's my only thing. It's nothing against what he's doing or what she's doing, what the Concom wants to do. That's just my thing. I'd rather it in the operating budget. That's my argument.
Can I say something here just real quick? I mean, I think a lot of the trail work has to do with wetlands. It has to do with bridges. It has to do with curbing, erosion. There is a significant wetland component to maintaining the trails. So I don't think it's that far off what that fund is intended for.
John, I would agree with that. So then you have to, then I would pinpoint projects that need to be done, and then, you know, and put a dollar amount on that particular thing when it deals with wetlands, and then use that funds for that particular project on the trails there, rather than doing it with the operating budget. But I guess everybody would say, well, what the heck, you're just going to move money around, but it's just a better accounting of understanding what it really costs around the town.
Well, it's still going to show up in our budget. I mean, our thought was we need more hours for the trail work. And instead of putting a burden on the taxpayers, you know, let's use a fund we already have. We're trying to do a good thing here.
Yeah, but the money's not free. The burden's on some taxpayer. If it's a developer or whatever, it's all on a taxpayer in some respect. We don't get it from a free cash tree. So it comes from somewhere. I understand that, but so if you want to identify certain projects for wetlands that he can be using this on, I think that would be a better way of doing it. That's my only. You do what you guys want to do. I'm just saying that I don't think we should be using a quote unquote a free cash, I guess you could call it, or some type of fund in our operating budget. That just wasn't what we were taught, or at least I wasn't taught by a selectman when, you know, Tracy and all them. It was very frowned upon doing this. So if you guys want to do it, do it. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, this is just, it's intended to be a supplemental measure. It's a trial run to see if it works out. I mean, this is not, you know, etched in stone. We'd like to try it for, you know, the next 6 months and, you know, maybe reevaluate. If you prefer, we could request that in the budget. You know, it just seemed to make more sense with the, you know, pressure we all feel about the budget this year to try to not add money to our operating budget.
And additionally, I would say that we have a fund, it's sitting there, it's stranded. We ought to use the money. I mean, we don't need $90,000 in growing in that particular fund. We need something in it, but we don't need $90,000 in growing. The rate that's been proposed to withdraw is less than the rate of growth of the fund.
I agree with everything you just said, Rick, but you're going to be using that fund on operating budget. That's all I'm saying. So I bet you if we could identify some wetland problems in town, we could spend that money really quick.
The fund has to be used for the administration or enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act. So it's really limited. It's like the notice of intent, the work associated with filing and things like that. It's not like a wetland project that we think is important and we want to build a bridge.
So Wendy, the actual administrative work related to that is actually the bailiwick of this particular money then?
That's right. And,
Okay.
you know, I tried to get Bert to estimate how much of his weekly effort is administrative, and it varies over the year. So we thought we'd start with 3 hours and see if that's adequate. It's probably more like 5 or 6 hours. So that won't completely cover his administrative efforts.
Okay. Okay, I think we've talked this enough. Do I have a motion one way or the other?
Yeah, I would move that we allocate sufficient funds from the Wetlands Protection Fund. That's the correct name of the fund, Wendy?
It's the Wetlands Protection Revolving Fund.
Okay, Wetlands Protection Revolving Fund to support 3 hours per week of Conservation Commission administrative work. And then I don't think I have to say anything more than that, because then the Concom will figure out how to administer the funds, the offset.
I'm going to second that for discussion. So you there?
Yep.
Hey, Rick, so I would go along with that. Okay. As long as that it ends on June 30th and I'm not going to be around, but the selectmen get a report of how that worked and all that kind of stuff. So
actually, Glenn, you know what? I'll modify if you don't. Well,
whatever.
I think we need a longer period of time to fully understand how this works. So I would sunset this motion at June 30th, 2022, so that we get more than a full year operating this way and find out how we stabilize. I mean, so that I'll just leave it at that, and then we can discuss.
Okay. What does stabilize mean? And I'm not trying to be picky. I just want to make sure.
No, that's fine. I'm talking about stabilization of the trails as opposed to financial stabilization. So, I have some personal experience in trails.
No, I got it.
Okay. So.
Okay, listen, that's fine. I said my piece about it. I'll vote for it, and because I don't want it to come across that I'm negative about it. I hope people understood where I was coming from, my perspective, that I don't like supplementing operating budgets with other funds. That was it.
Glenn, I know what you're thinking. Like, for example, a grant comes in, somebody gets hired on the grant, and then the grant goes away, and then we create
exactly.
payroll and personnel and budget creep by so doing. But I don't think we're doing that here. That's all.
That's what happened with the police. We got those incentives for grants. They paid for their salaries for 2 years, but part of that grant that was in the small print, that then you have to keep them on forever. You know what I mean? And so then all of a sudden we absorb the next year a full patrolman in our operating budget. Or we had to pay all the grant money back. I got it. I'll vote for it. I just wanted to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. Enough's enough.
I do.
Fortunately, unlike Glenn, and thanks for that. Fortunately, I think, relative to the situation with the patrolmen, I don't think there are those kind of strings attached here. I mean, we have full control over the funds, or the town, I should say, not we, but the town has full control over the funds.
Okay.
No, I agree. I was just using it as an example.
Okay. Point just for,
we're spending a lot of time over $5,000 here, and we usually spend like a minute and a half on the school budget or something. So let's go.
I just want to note that part of why I recommended that this be brought forward this week is the commission, I know, is going to be discussing later tonight its proposed FY22 budget. So determining whether we have whether there's the support to use this fund is kind of a key input to that budget, because if there wasn't support, then I believe the commission would be proposing those hours in the operating budget. So the timing of this is important to next year's budgeting. So I appreciate your attention to it.
Great.
Okay. All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Glenn? Parker, aye.
Kemper, aye. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute.
Okay, and that was through June 30th of 2022, which aligns with the budget discussion or comment that I just made.
Correct.
All right,
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our next item is I'm having to read my phone because I don't have a paper copy, so bear with me. Request to allow the Pawtucket Regional School District to use a portion of its ESSER2 grant allocation to lower the FY22 assessments as allowed in Governor Baker's House 1 budget language. I have no idea what the ESSER2 thing is. So
That's the ESSER2. It's a high performance sports car, isn't it?
Okay.
So this is, and I got, very little backup and haven't had a whole lot of time to look into it. It's basically the CARES Act for schools. It's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. Congress appropriated many billions of dollars that was allocated to school districts across the country. And an allowable use of that fund is for the school committee to use it to offset the impact on operating budgets. What I've learned fairly recently in a meeting with the finance director at Pawtucket is that because this, two-step formula with the three towns, we actually don't anticipate West Newbury will see an increase in our operating budget for next year. Just so everyone's clear, we will see an increase with the capital because of the new school, obviously. But on the operating budget, it's going to hit much more heavily on the Groveland and Merrimack, who will see increases. So that's why in Greg Lebrecht's email in the package, you can see that they're looking to apply this to the benefit of Groveland and Merrimack, but West Newbury wouldn't directly benefit.
Well, that's good and, try to keep everybody a happy house, but this is very cyclical. When it was really hitting us hard, not the other towns, I'm almost positive nobody had a
There weren't a lot of
proposal.
tears. There
Yeah.
were no tears.
Yeah, no proposal to help us out. But, that's here nor there. So you need a vote from us or what? What do you need?
If it didn't happen, it probably wouldn't help us anyway. So I guess, so.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly, Greg is saying that he would look at a majority of the towns, so 2 or more approvals constituting a yes. And I know Groveland has already voted, and if Merrimack hasn't, I know they're going to vote in favor. So I do see this board's vote as somewhat symbolic. But if you were inclined to vote for it, the language of the motion is on page 20 of your packet.
As a symbolic gesture, I would say yes, right? But, to tell them that, if it was a situation like this again, we would expect the same reciprocate,
Remember
want it
who your
back.
friends are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So who's going to make the motion?
We're looking for I'm looking for the motion right now.
It's in the email toward the top of page 20.
I'm sorry, I'm on the paper copy, so that.
But there's page numbers in the lower right.
Yeah, but I don't see it on page. Oh, there, I'm sorry, okay. Yeah, so I'll make a motion to allow, I make a motion to allow the Pentucket Regional School District to use a portion of its ESSER 2 grant allocation to lower the fiscal year 2022 assessments as allowed in the governor's House Budget 1 language.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye. And to our fellow Pentucket communities, remember this later, please.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess hope reigns eternal. Maybe we're going to discuss the guidelines with the hope that perhaps there will be a Memorial Day parade this year. We don't know, but we just wanted to reinforce the guidelines. Angus, have we talked with our parade chairperson? Have you been in contact with him at all, or no?
No, I haven't until, honestly, I mean, as you know, we've been incredibly busy, and
Right.
as has Paul. And so I have not even asked Paul Savigny the question of his recommendation on the parade.
He probably doesn't even have an idea yet. We don't know.
No, probably not. I mean, the vaccination clinics have taken an unbelievable amount of time, especially in that office. But one of the issues, I do want the board to discuss, there may be an unintended consequence of the policy as it was drafted. If you look toward the top of page 2 of the policy, it says vehicles must be insured and road safe. And we've heard there's some concern that the requirement for insurance may require that the vehicle is registered. Is that the concern? Because obviously it's a farm community.
Well, we're talking about tractors too. We're talking about tractors.
No one wants to prohibit tractors or, unregistered vehicles necessarily.
Even like go-karts or something like that, or yeah.
Right. So are there unintended consequences in here we should look at as kind of a housekeeping?
I would say yes, that we get away from the registered insured and make sure that we have the selectmen pick a particular route, as in like on Memorial Day from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is going to be our Memorial Day parade. It starts at blank number Main Street, ends at the training field, and that you can have go-karts, tractors, a drags, I think Archie mentioned before, like a dragster, but somebody who built just like funny cars and things like that. And then, they have to be off the roads after because some of the cars are actually trailered down, and then the trailers are left at the food mart, and they're put into the parade, all the old time ones and stuff like that that aren't registered, but they're trailered down and then done. So I think we cut our parade probably in half by saying that, none of the old farm tractors and things like that would be able to participate. And I think that
it was certainly not an intention.
no.
Yeah. The thing is that we don't require that they're registered. The only requirement is that they be insured and road safe. Now, a vehicle can be insured and not necessarily have car insurance. But if you wanted to eliminate that, you would just say that vehicles must be road safe. And whether they're a tractor or a go-kart,
that's fair.
they should be road safe.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, though?
Yeah.
Well,
How do
it
you
means-
define
it-
road
it
safe?
It means that the parade czar can basically make a determination. No, that vehicle is not safe.
Well,
And
you might,
It's like, it goes back to like whatever they said back, in the 50s and 60s, when you see pornography, you know what it is. That guy's going to be able to make a determination and say, or woman, that, hey, listen, this, I see it. This isn't road safe. I'm sorry.
well,
You know
what
what I
about,
mean?
say, what about, I'm just picking things up. What about a unicycle or
Well, no, that's road safe.
now they
that's
have,
not a vehicle.
now they have powered unicycles. I don't really
Well,
consider them safe, but they run in a parade.
Well, a unicycle ridden by you is probably safer. Unicycle ridden by me is probably not safe. And that's why the parade chairman gets the big bucks. And to go back on that, we appointed that person. Did we just do that for a year? Do we have to redo that because we didn't have one last year and we kind of bypassed it? I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm
I
asking.
don't know. Did we make him like parade czar for life?
I don't know. So we might want to look at that
No,
because
I think he stood up, understanding the controversy that there existed because of
no, I understand that, but I don't know what our appointment was. I don't know if
Yeah,
our
we'd
appointment
have
was
to go back and look. It was right around this time. I think it was probably January, February last year.
Right.
I'll have to go back. and
It
see
was-
whether there
all
was a-
I'm saying,
It
all
was
I'm saying,
before COVID, Angus.
yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
we
yeah.
just maybe we made that appointment for that 1 year, and then we just kind of got lost because of COVID and it never happened. So
Mhm.
if that's the case, we just make sure we have to reappoint him before,
I think it was czar for life.
There you go. Sounds good to me. Okay, so Mike, so does everybody agree?
All you'd have to do is make a motion to amend the parade guidelines to delete the words
Insured,
insured
yep.
and so that it will read now, vehicles must be road safe.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
And just in discussion, are we sure that is the change? Because I kind of was guessing that might have been the language that may have raised the concern. Do we think that does it? That this fix would fix the concern? Because as Archie said, it was nobody's intent.
Well, tell me. I mean, do you know? Are you saying that because you've heard whispers otherwise? I haven't. This was all I heard when I brought it up was that what if somebody wanted to use their their tractor, you know what I mean, or those little go-kart things? We wouldn't be able to do that any longer.
Yeah,
because a lot of
I looked through the bylaw and there was nothing else in the bylaw that would have raised that flag.
Okay, so I'm fine with it.
And I think that their reading was a little bit narrow. I mean, you can have a vehicle that's insured that doesn't necessarily have to have like car insurance.
I understand, but some of these tractors aren't insured. They're just tractors, and they don't go off the land other than the Memorial Day parade. And then And then
It
you
could
have
be, I mean,
some,
it could be insured by your house insurance, basically, is what I'm saying.
I know, but I don't think you really want to get into that. And then,
No.
then you have tractors that have to be insured because they go to these poles, these tractor poles, and that's just a different level. And some of those are in the parade too.
Yeah.
You know, they go to the tractor pulls for the fairs and stuff like that.
So we don't want to
Okay.
make everybody carry $1 million umbrella policy.
No,
Okay.
not this week. Okay, so I moved it. I think it was seconded by somebody.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Rick seconded.
Okay, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, next item, I'm reading very small print here, hang on. Discussion of the facilities rental policy and request for the Red Cross blood drives, additional requests in calendar year 21. So these are, there our facilities policy that we created allows a nonprofits to do up to 6 events a year. And then after that, if they request additional space, time and space in our facilities, then you have to come to the Board of Selectmen. So the Red Cross has already been approved for, I actually think 7 events through approximately June, and now they're requesting 6 more events through the summer and the fall. I can think about things in 2 ways this way. 2 ways about this. First off, this is the especially some of the Red Cross events are pretty much 12-hour affairs, and so it using the annex or any other group on those days. The second thing is that it certainly does have some costs, related to maintaining the bathrooms, if it's in the summer, air conditioning the place, and so forth. And finally, the Red Cross is not a small, poor nonprofit. Their CEO of the Red Cross makes $694,000 a year. I looked it up. And I'm a huge Red Cross blood donor. I'm not against the Red Cross at all, but I just think I don't want them monopolizing the annex and basically asking for twice as much time as anyone else would get. And there's going to be a tremendous backlog of other people looking to use the annex when with COVID restrictions finally ease a little bit. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to use that space. So I haven't decided either way, but those are my concerns with giving them. We've already given them the max, and now they're asking for double that. So
my question would be, why are they asking for more? Because other people are saying no because of COVID?
I don't know.
Because
Yeah.
this doesn't seem like the norm every year.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I kind of wondered too why the numbers have gone up, and I too am a very much an advocate for donating blood, through Red Cross drives. But I had to wonder why now do they need to up it so much through West Newbury? Is it because there are problems elsewhere, or is it something else? I don't know, and it would be interesting to hear something from
I would actually say let's table this and get some better explanation of why, and say that we might be open to more dates, but we just can't blanket give you all of them at this point without some better explanation.
I mean, my impression was that the Red Cross sometimes had problems staffing, if they had, I've encountered situations going to Red Cross blood drives where they didn't have adequate staffing. And so the whole picture is not really clear. Last thing we want to do is secure a space for a Red Cross blood drive and then have a problem come up on their end, not being able to use the space and it having been allocated already where somebody else would have liked to have used it. Maybe we should try to turn this into a regularly scheduled event, if the Red Cross is able to do that, where, maybe there's 6 or 8 blood drives a year and they're predictable when they're going to be. And because it provides a service to everybody. But it also does, as you pointed out, Archie, it pulls the availability of a limited resource away from everybody else.
Well, and remember, they in lots of places, they own their own buildings or they rent space and so forth. So they're not a organization that runs on a total shoestring budget. They have significant money and they make a decent amount of money when they sell the blood that they collect. So it isn't, they're not the most, the charity in the most dire straits, I guess I would put that. So I would like to get more information too. Why us and why so much now? Yeah.
And would we be even letting them use the facility if it wasn't for the Blood Cross? Right now, don't we have one tomorrow?
We do have one tomorrow, but we
Yeah,
already
exactly.
approved that one. Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but my point being, to go back to your point, Archie, that there's such a backlog of just our local people who want to use our facilities. So when it does finally open up after COVID, a lot of people are going to be using it, and then the Red Cross has been using it all along, and they're going to have other dates that are tied up. So there's some merit to that too.
Angus, do you have any more information?
I agree with tabling it. It's one of these things that I have, I know Annie's been the point of contact. I haven't had the time or the mental bandwidth, honestly, to dig into it. So I think let's bring it back. I'll talk to her. She'll have more information and we'll get more in the packet. Because I think it's not just a question of the fee waiver. I actually I think they would pay the fee. It's as much a question of just what you're talking about of, the use of the facilities for what you can see are in some cases 12-hour events. And, do we want to make the facility that available to a single organization and with the implications that has with cleaning and disinfecting and so forth?
Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, last thing I have to say is, personally, I think it's great that they're doing blood drives here. I don't remember a year ago or 2 years ago having blood drives in town. Maybe they were here and I somehow missed that, but it's a lot more convenient than having to drive to Danvers or something like that.
It seemed like it was maybe one a year.
Oh, is Annie? Annie, is that you on the line?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. They did tell me, the woman that I speak to, that they're having difficulty finding really large spaces and they have to spread out everyone now. So that was one of the things she had said to me, why the annex worked.
Ah, okay, good. Interesting to know.
That makes sense.
So is it correct, Annie, what I said about that it's not so much the fee waiver, it's more just this is a lot of use within the year?
It's a lot of use, right?
We think they pay the fee, right? That's not really what's driving this. Am I correct on that?
I've never asked her about paying the fee. It's just when she puts them through, it's usually 6 or 7 at a time, and a number of those are double booked.
You mean double length?
Right.
Events, yeah.
Yeah, to go back on it, we need to keep this, we're not a function facility. Now they're using us because they can't find somewhere else. And so I would say that we have to say no eventually because it's going to open up and we have to be able to have this available for our taxpayers, our local groups, the Boy Scouts, the sporting groups, the art groups, the garden club, stuff like that. We can't have just one group monopolizing it. I don't know if monopolizing is the way, but just, I think you know what I mean. But,
Well, it sounds like the choice of venue is driven by the size and COVID, the combination of size of our venue and the presence of COVID. And that presumably 6 months from now is going to be a different situation, or 10 months from now anyway, is going to be a different
you would
situation.
hope. Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
This is just the same reason, but in a different clothing. The reason why we got so much more facilities use forms over the last 3 or 4 years. So a lot of the other places and towns were just saying no. And we were cheap and people having birthday parties. This is just another reason why we're getting more demand, because other people are saying no, or it's just not accommodating for them. So we have to say no too, and be able to be, we would love to say yes to everybody, but we just can't.
Okay, good.
Beat that one up.
Well, so I don't know if we did with Annie still on the call. I'm just trying to save a step for myself. I got a lot of work this week.
Yep, great.
Like, if you have questions you want answered with Annie on the line and with her being the direct point of contact with Red Cross, let's make sure we're clear on what the questions are. Because otherwise I'm going to waste my time, and I have a lot of other work to do. So what other questions?
Well, I guess one question I would have then is this something that would be a recurring issue in future years, or is it really just a phenomena that's for current times because of COVID? And I'd add on to that, if my impression was right, and we haven't been doing, and Red Cross has not been doing blood drives here at all in the past, when COVID is over, will they still be coming back here to do blood drives? I hope they will.
No, because then they don't need the space. So if anything else, Annie, my question would be, I wouldn't want to approve, this is just me, Annie, Glenn talking, but I wouldn't want to approve a big block at one time, because things will change. Things might change, and we could have that little discussion and say, hey, okay, we understand your need, and our facility fits your needs because of COVID. Okay, so we understand that. That's great. So maybe we say yes to one more rather than a whole new block, because like what Rick said, things are going to change.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. I would say, okay, we'll approve one more in the summer or something, but we don't know what's going to happen, and we may have unbelievable demand from other people, and we can't give you everything. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, the last thought I'll throw in is that I would hope that we don't somehow create a situation where they get out of the habit of coming here and they find other places to do blood drives, and they don't come back to West Newbury, because I really think it's good to be able to have it locally, a handful of times a year.
Right, I agree with that, and I'll bring that up in the discussion.
Okay, great. Thanks, Annie.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we should be able to have that on for a week from tonight.
There's no hurry, Angus. These aren't till the summer.
Yeah, actually, I just think it's their schedule that's driving it, so it's not a hurry on our end. That's for sure.
Well, if you want to get this out of the way, don't even have it on for any more discussion. Tell them that we'll approve one more, and then we're not going to address it again until, for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it never comes back on again. Say, hey, give Annie the authority right now to say, okay, we'll add one more, because that's as far as we want to go out. But, the world's going to be different then. And we're going to have demand on this from our own townspeople. So we would love to be able to do it, but sorry. And we were gracious to give you one more.
Now, in terms of the fee waiver, So there are 7 on the calendar. I don't believe they requested a waiver for the 7th.
So charge them.
Just go ahead and tell them that that 7th one on June 29th would be with a fee, and that another one in the summer would also be with a fee.
Without a
Sure.
doubt, because we're actually doing more than general because of COVID and the sterilization and all that kind of stuff. We have to clean it even more than
That's correct.
normal.
That's right, Glenn.
So
Yeah,
the seventh one that was approved, I just want to be clear on this. You want to charge on that one?
I think we should. That's what the
Okay.
policy says.
The policy says they only get 6.
Okay.
So I would say, and we'll give them one more, but they have to pay for that fee also. And what is the fee? Still probably not
120.
enough. Yeah, 120.
yeah, I mean, that's nothing. You know,
No, nothing.
Their cost to run the clinic for a day is probably a couple of grand
Yeah, that's nothing.
or more. Yeah.
That you're gonna find that's the reason why they're coming back here too, Rick. I understand it's a good thing to have here, but all of a sudden they're a nonprofit and they get 6 free things. You know, another place another place hypothetically could be charging them $2,000. Excuse me, 200, just say. So that's saving them $1,200. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a business in the sense too. They're going to go where it doesn't cost them much. We have great adequate parking. Whatever. Okay.
Okay, how do we want to deal with this? Now we've got individual
What?
town meeting article requests.
Well, so as I sent out a note to the board just a couple of hours ago, I don't have the list that I've been working to put together.
I'd make a motion that we postpone the closing of the spring articles, since, you know, we put this deadline on, and then we even push back our spring town meeting, but we didn't push back the closure date. So I would say we do it 2 meetings from now.
So that's 3 weeks from now.
Yep.
How about just 1 meeting from now, or are you?
I was just trying to be helpful. I was
Yeah.
just trying to be grateful. So you it's better for you to tell me. I was just trying to give you more time.
I think I'll be ready. You know, it's honestly, if I didn't get sick and lose most of Friday and the weekends, it is what it is, Angus. It's just, yeah. So I think, and
we're still going to be in March, and
Yeah.
our town meeting is not going to be to the end of May.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think a week from today is good, because
Generally we're dealing with a town meeting that's what, the last Monday in April.
That's right. So we're almost 4 weeks later.
Yeah. So I wouldn't try to take advantage of the time. But if you think it's too much, then it's too much.
Well, I got to kind of clear the decks, because there's a lot of budget work too. So I think closing it, there is an advantage to that. And I would have loved to get it done tonight. it just didn't.
So I make a motion that they'll be closed at our next meeting.
I'll second that, but we will have discussion, right?
Yeah, I want to discuss, because my feeling is you leave the door open and you get more stuff. That's all.
Yeah, but then we can say no to it. It's very simple. If people just
No,
start,
we can't say no to the deadline. If
but we can say no to the more
Make
stuff. That's all I'm
if we
saying.
make the deadline further down, we get more stuff.
I got it, but if it's only a week, right, we can say no to the stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Other than, unless it's a citizen petition article, Glenn's exactly right. The board doesn't need to put it on the warrant.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, if somebody, and we can tell, and Angus can tell, and we all can tell if something was just stuck on there because it was 1 week, we really don't need it. We'll just say no. I mean, do you really anticipate any? I'm assuming, this is my assumption of the whole situation, and tell me if I'm wrong. You know, we got everything probably in that we have, but it just needs a little bit more organization and put together so it can be presented to us, so we can make some good, educated decisions after we close it. We're not expanding. We're not increasing the deadline because we anticipate more people bringing in more articles, are we?
No, you've got it exactly right, Glenn. There's
Yeah.
materials that just didn't all get put together properly and into a format that you have it clearly in front of you. And in
Yeah,
fact,
so let's
I
just do it
overlooked
that way.
some of the things that I had received timely. I just forgot, because it's just been that busy. So that was when I kind of said, I'm not comfortable that at this point, I think I've got things, but
Yeah, but you didn't feel comfortable about putting everything together to be able to give it to us.
that's right.
So Angus, are there any articles that can be passed? I guess we need to talk about them first, so maybe this doesn't work, but I'm just trying to help out the FinCom here. Is there anything that we can pass on to the FinCom at this point in time? So that
Well, they're not going to schedule their meetings until I propose my budget. I've been in contact with them, and we've kind of talked about their meetings running from kind of mid-March into the early April.
Okay.
And
So all's
we're
good.
not holding off of their meetings, but like capital improvements is meeting this Wednesday. We expect them to make the recommendations on the, I think there's 7 or 8 articles in front of them. CPC has recommended 3 of the 5 and has continued 2 of them. So there's still going to be some question there, but there's some others that have come in from department heads that, I just didn't have time to put it all together. There's a lot going on.
Okay.
So I made a motion to have the deadline at our next meeting. So,
Yeah, and Rick seconded.
well, oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay, further discussion? So what time? Let's get it to the minute here. What do we want?
Well, so the warrant doesn't close till you vote to close it. In terms of when we'll accept articles, we've already, you don't even, actually, I mean, here's the thing. You've already said you wanted to receive articles by the 12th.
Well, right.
That wouldn't even need to change. If a petition article came in and it was certified with the signatures, that can be submitted right up until the selectmen vote to close it. But if it's some other article, some of the ones that I haven't had them, enough time for are things that I'm going to be looking for the Board of Selectmen to consider sponsoring. So they're not things from others. They're things that we might want to propose or that we've kicked around that I haven't had time to flesh out.
And Angus?
Yeah.
Mike might correct me on this, but I don't even think that's right. If a citizen's petition comes in after we close it, but fits the guidelines about posting and stuff, I think we have to allow it on the warrant. Isn't that true, Mike? Mike there?
I'm here.
Just because we close it.
I think if you close it, I double check, but I think if you close it, then the warrant's closed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
Glenn, they can't do it like.
Okay, let's go. I always thought it was different. Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I stand corrected.
there is an exception, I think, for zoning articles, only because there's a procedure set forth in the statute. And so that would be an exception, I think, because.
Okay, I thought we can't just close it. I mean, we can close it, but if a citizen's article came in that fit the guidelines of the signatures, it was in, how we have to post it certain amount of time beforehand.
No, because we didn't do that last year. We made, we made the people who wanted the special town meeting put it as a special town meeting as opposed
Okay, I got it.
to part of
Sorry.
the warrant.
Okay, sorry. I stand corrected.
Okay, further discussion, all in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thank you.
Angus, can I just ask about the wetlands bylaw, how that will, so does that, engender a public hearing beforehand or before, or how does that, anything special about that?
That's a good question, because it's, as you have in front of you the same materials I have, and as written, it's not, unless I've overlooked it, I don't see that it proposes to add it to the general bylaws or the zoning bylaws. I think my understanding is the intent, the commission's intent is that this be part of the town bylaws, not the zoning bylaws.
So it's not a zoning bylaw.
Right, not a zoning bylaw. So I don't believe there is a hearing requirement. However, with something like this, we obviously, not just we, but the public, residents need to understand what would be the implications. Who would it affect? How would it affect them? Administratively, are we set up to administer a bylaw like this? Things, I think a hearing would be justified, I guess is what I'm saying, like a meaningful hearing. Mike,
no hearing is required to amend a town bylaw. No hearing is required. It's not a zoning bylaw. So
Could you use that wetlands money that we talked about earlier to administrate this bylaw?
You could. I believe so.
There we go.
So what kind of, I had some questions and a lot of questions about it, as a matter of fact. And so other than kind of going at it word by word at town meeting, what would be the procedure to if there is no public hearing, how do we get anything adjudicated on that? It seems like we need some kind of public hearing on this. It's very complicated. There's a lot of stuff in this.
Sounds like maybe that's something we'll need to ask the Concom about if they're able to support a public hearing.
Do you want to invite representative to a meeting, to the meeting a week from tonight?
Why can't we just have it as a selectman, have a public hearing and ask them to come?
I think you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that to them.
So if it's a public hearing,
So we'd have to announce it and all that stuff.
yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is what are the advertising requirements? I mean, is it technically a public hearing or a public meeting? I don't know where the
Public meeting, I guess you would say.
yeah.
Well, a public meeting is different than a hearing. Then you don't have to advertise it.
Well, and also about a public hearing, generally you have a specified group of, say if it's a zoning bylaw or something like that, you have, no, actually, I guess if it's a general public hearing.
Well, we could have them when we close it or when we decide if we want it on the warrant or not, because we might not want it on the warrant.
So let's not do it next.
You might want to ask them to come in.
Our minds that I think that at some point the public needs to address this before this giant document just goes to town meeting.
Right, and I don't think it's in any way, it wouldn't be fair for the FinCom to serve that function. That's not really their role at all.
So my point being, Archie, would be that when we vote on it, that's their opportunity to to bring it forward and like have a pseudo public meeting and have them come and talk about it. So then we could ask questions. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So it's like, they come forward and explain the document to us. So we have so like you said, it's big. I don't even understand it. So it's probably better for them to come and have a pseudo public hearing and talk about it. So then we could ask questions. And if anybody else is here could ask questions, the public, and then we could make an intelligent decision to put it on the warrant or not.
Hey, Mike McCarron, that is, from a practical standpoint, when a town bylaw is voted on at town meeting, that just requires a simple majority, right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
So what do you think? Is next week too premature to do that or what?
I would recommend March 15th because even if, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but even if when the selectmen close the warrant, even if they include this, they could always remove it.
That's correct. That's
So-
correct.
And I think March 15th gives everyone, including my office, frankly, because I got this, I think, Thursday afternoon, and Mike, I think, didn't get it till I sent the packet out Saturday. So I know he hasn't had time to review it in detail. I haven't had time to even read it, frankly. And I have other things I need to do in the next week other than reading a wetland. I got a budget to prepare. I can't.
Just because we're closing the warrant doesn't mean the warrants are going to be on the articles are going to be on the warrant.
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
Okay, so I would agree with what Angus said. Okay.
So let's aim for the 15th for that the selectmen would consider this in detail and invite the commission to
Explain it.
the proposal.
Good, okay. Okay, our next item is a review of the draft conservation restriction for the Artichoke property. I have no comments about this. I think we've gone over it, but it's very complicated. I have no comment. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed it on, numerous occasions. I read it through 100%. I might have missed a word or two, but because there were probably 100,000 words. But it hit all the points that I recall us talking about. It addressed them all, I thought, adequately, and I don't have anything more to say about it. I thought it was what would be expected, although it was 5 times as many words as I would have read.
Yeah, exactly. But I would agree with both Archie and Rick. But Mike, is there anything that we need to, or Angus, is there anything that we need to be concerned about that we might have missed, legal or that? You know what I'm trying to say? That we wouldn't have caught?
No, I don't think so. We went over it and our concern has always been to preserve that as much as possible. And of course, our concern is the same as Newburyport's. So our interests are very much alike. And so we made sure that, we all made sure that those things that protected the water supply are in there. So that's how I looked at it. And it certainly does seem to do exactly that.
Yeah, with the state agencies and both municipalities, there's been a lot of eyes on this, and I think it's very tight. I would recommend approval in its current form, and it's before the Concom tonight as well, and I'm hoping they'll take the same action, and then we can focus on getting the signatures and moving toward the closing.
So do we need to make a motion to approve the CR as it currently exists?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if nobody else has anything else to say, I move that we approve the Artichoke Woods Conservation Restriction as presented.
Second.
Further discussion, and I would just make a note as the draft as the specific draft as appears in this agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thanks.
I see we have Lynn Spencer here. Do we want to take out of order the soldiers and sailors so they don't have to wait around anymore?
That'd be great.
Okay.
They would appreciate that.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hey.
So, Angus, are you willing to share on the screen the site plan that I sent earlier today?
Yeah, I've got it up in front of me. So just to preface Lynn and her team, and I should specify that includes both her office, but also the civil engineering firm GM2 Camet, and there's others as well. But they met was it just last Tuesday, Lynn, with the planning
It
board?
was.
And it seems like a long time ago. But there were some issues that came up in the discussion that I thought it would be really helpful to get her with the Board of Selectmen, because obviously you, representing the landowners, are the applicant. And while last week's discussion was just pre-application advisory, there were a couple of items that came up that I gave Lynn my 2 cents, but I don't speak for the Board of Selectmen. So I wanted her to summarize those topics and just update you on where they are with the anticipated, permitting with both planning, really primarily planning board. We think Concom is probably going to be an RDA, not a notice of intent, is our expectation. So, so she did, and then one of the issues that relates to this that we'd like to get some clarity on is on the site planning. There was a site plan in front of the selectmen a few years ago with the Drake's Landing that showed a certain configuration with a driveway down the side and so forth. And as you know, the plan has kind of evolved a bit. That's what I'll put on the screen is what's been the working plan for a while now, going back to the CPC proposal. But I was reminding Lynn a couple of weeks ago that the Board of Selectmen, while you've seen the CPC proposal and you endorsed the CPC proposal, you've never actually voted to endorse this site plan. So before it's submitted as an application to Planning Board, we want to make sure that what's submitted is in fact the intent of the Board of Selectmen. So that's probably a good preface, and then I'll do a screen share, and perhaps Lynn, you can get into the details of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Right. Is that big enough that everyone can see it?
Yes.
So thank you, Angus. That was a very good introduction, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to the Board of Selectmen tonight. There are sort of several elements to this plan, and I know that you've had conversations with cottage advisors about their participation in the site plan. I'm going to take you through what we are now proposing, which is a slight variation on what you have seen before. But you'll see that there's an entrance off the cottage advisors roadway to a parking lot. And in fact, that parking lot has been partially graded up by cottage advisors as part of their agreement with the town of Newbury, or West Newbury. In that parking lot, there are 8 parking spaces. We have proposed to relocate the handicap parking space closer to the entrance to the building, which is going to be from the parking lot with basically a very almost a level pitched walkway to the rear door of the building that will become the main entrance to the Soldiers and Sailor Memorial Building. There is also provision here for a walkway that will go around to the front of the building and out to the street. Thank you, Angus, for the arrow, with a crosswalk that is also, to my understanding, part of the agreement with cottage advisors. We envision that roadway, that being a walkway, a pedestrian walkway, in contrast to what the Board of Selectmen might have seen earlier, which was actually a road wide enough for a vehicle to pass on. I think there was a prior thought by the Department of the Director of Public Works that this would be advisable, but in working with Angus and Wayne, we've decided to make this into a walkway, therefore less paving, which I think is desirable here. We are also showing a sort of bluestone type walkway going to the front of the building. This will be a ceremonial entrance, not an accessible entrance, so we will be securing a variance for that purpose from the Board of the Architectural Access Board. But this is also, by the way, an emergency exit from the first floor, so it is certainly functional. Down to the lower portion of the building, Angus, can we just show the location of the tight tank? Working with the Board of Health Advisory, Paul, he had long, in the planning process over a year ago, had advised the use of a tight tank in lieu of a conventional septic system. So a tight tank is planned for this location. What's showing here is actually a larger tank than we are planning to use. When Dennis Hamill of GM2 conceived of this in the beginning, that was over an 8,000 gallon tank. We are now looking at a 3,500 gallon tank. And this is a little bit different than what you heard last week, which was a 2,000 gallon tank. I want to share with you the practicality of your team, because Paul observed that in order to pump a tank, they have to send a truck out that normally takes a 2,500 gallon pump. And with the regulations with the tight tank and the functionality and administration of it, tight tank has an alarm that goes off when 3/5 of the tank is filled. In that case, it would be with a 3,500 gallon tank, it would be at the 2,300 gallon level. And Paul is advising us to go with a tank of this size because it makes it, a good deal, quite honestly, in the pumping. You have to pay for a 25 gallon pump regardless. So there's a certain functionality to this. Also in this area, we are looking at adding to this plan, what is not currently on this plan, is adding additional screen plantings. Some plantings in this area, and I'm looking at just to the right of that tight tank designation, some plantings were done by cottage advisors several years ago. They have not fared well, and we are believing that it's to the interest of the planning board regulations to have that area replanted, hopefully with indigenous and natural materials. So other things that I want to point out, the planning board in their advisory role here, we're cautious about advising safety and the concern for the public on this site. So we actually need to add site lighting to this plan. We're looking at dark sky type fixtures, probably 1 or 2 in the parking lot, and then lighting at the rear entrance as well as the front entrance of the building. So those are the major features of this site plan, and I would certainly welcome. Oh, and the other thing I should also mention, sorry if I forgot that, but what is now a parking area in front of the building will be removed, and instead a lawn will be replanted there. So again, less paving on the site, more permeability, and more consistency with the proximity to the wetlands areas.
Lynn, can you briefly speak to the propane tanks shown on the plan?
Thank you. What are now shown as 2 propane tanks just to the right of the tower, as well as a gas line, are shown on the plan because there was the anticipation of having fuel to the building for the HVAC system. That gas line, there's a moratorium on installing a gas line for several years. So Dennis Hamill, I think, has prudently shown 2 propane tanks that would be temporary tanks for heating purposes. At this point, We have not determined the fuel source for this building. We did have an advisory meeting with Mass Save on energy, and we know there's a strong desire for prudent energy conservation systems for this building. But that's why we are showing a gas line and the gas tank. Call it the belt and suspenders approach.
And then I have a question about the reconfiguration of the parking lot. So the walkway from the right next to the handicap space over to the building. So the way it's, I don't know, the last time I looked at it, not that long ago, the parking lot was kind of above sort of the natural level of the ground, and then there's quite a marked depression as you then go towards the existing old back of the building. So would that walkway be a steep down, or would it be like a bridge, or how would that work?
It will be more like a bridge. It will actually be, it's virtually at the same level as the doorway. Interestingly enough, the parking lot level and the door threshold are aligned. So we are looking at filling that.
So that would still effectively be kind of like a swale. And would that be on both sides of this sidewalk here? Would be a depression, or would one or the other side of this be kind of graded to that parking?
I think it will be graded to the parking lot. I want to ask if Doug Manley, my colleague, was able to get into this call.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
Please add any comment that you care to on this.
I think the only other thing I might add is one of the comments we received last week from the planning board was a comment that our flagstone walkway at the front of the building seemed a little too rigid to their taste, and so we might put a curve into that to soften the edges of that.
And that was kind of where I said, whoa, Lynn, let's pump the brakes. Let's bring this to the Board of
I know.
Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen's the applicant.
What is that? Was that their only concern? What does that even mean?
No, actually, Lynn, I was going to ask Lynn, if you could just please summarize I think there were 3 items, but then you mentioned lighting, so that might be a 4th item that came out of that planning board discussion where I really wanted to get it to this Board of Selectmen before Lynn's team starts making changes based on planning board comments. I want to make sure that anything she submits is on behalf of this board as the applicant.
Okay, I have a comment.
So one of those was this front walkway being rounded.
Yeah, the picturesque front walkway, the size of the tight tank, which, as I explained at some length, in fact, we want to increase the size because of the practicality of pumping and safety.
There was also the issue of the lighting. Is that a bylaw requirement, or was that a planning board kind of preference?
I think that the safety thing comes out of the planning board, but it is, for functionality, it's a very prudent.
It makes sense to me.
Having witnessed when the public safety building was put up, the biggest issue with the whole building, lighting, and that was an ongoing problem in the town for probably 2 years with the butters relating to the lighting of the public safety building. So, having said that, I would say that maybe the lighting in the parking lot should be, if we need some, fine, but it should be minimized, and also maybe motion censored on and off, because there were tree plantings and fence putting uppings, and it was an ongoing problem with the light from the public safety building. So we don't want to get into that. We've been down that road, and we don't want to get into that problem with abutters in this situation again.
Thank you. I think that that's a great comment. We certainly want a dark sky fixture so it sort of lights down, but we will explore the idea of motion sensors.
One thing, if lighting was not part of the original project scope and budget, obviously that's going to hit the bottom line.
Yeah.
Is the planning board going to be looking for like a photometric analysis or anything like that?
We would normally provide that, Angus. So,
How much of a budget issue are all these things going to become?
well, fortunately, as we were talking with Dennis today about this, fortunately, the lumens analyses are something that comes with the lighting fixtures. So I think we can be pretty, lean and mean about that. And yes, it is an additional cost. It makes sense, given the desire to use the building. I mean, having a fixture at the door, quite honestly, at both doors is not a big issue. It's the lighting in the parking lot.
No, the building code would require egress lighting at the doors anyway.
So with the tight tank, is there any reason for us to pursue the right of way that we had acquired to someday have a leaching field out to the right? So that this is going to preclude that necessity?
It does include that necessity. And I think, from the very beginning, Paul has suggested a tight tank as a practical solution for this site because of the complications on leaching field and so on. But also, in all truth, it's not clear how this building is going to be used. We're all aware that there's a desire and hope that it'll be used for meetings on the first floor and offices on the second. But remember the size of this building. The floor plate it's about 1,000 square feet per floor. So it's not huge.
Right.
And that's overall.
I think the other thing that's significant there is that, it's not going to have a full kitchen. I mean, it's not going to be,
right.
There'll be toilets, but there's no showers. There's no full kitchen. I mean, there are limited contributors to the septage from the building.
Yes, so, there's 2 restrooms and 1 kitchenette sink.
Yeah.
Lynn, does the like as in a house, the size of the number of bathrooms equates to the size of the septic tank and so system equates to the number of bedrooms. So by having a tank of this particular size, does that in any way by the building code limit the occupancy of the building?
Not to my knowledge. It's, the tank gets pumped as it's used. So,
right.
So, if you have frequent usage and that alarm goes off, you'll be pumping more frequently.
But there's no like 37 square feet equals 10 square feet in the tight tank or anything like that. Nothing like that. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that we're aware of. And we're really guided by your Board of Health person.
Okay.
So the planning board under the site plan review, these are only advisory type of things, right?
That's correct. They can't deny a site plan approval. It's right use.
It was a rhetorical question. I just want to make sure that I brought it back to perspective.
Well, and that's where, things like the suggestion that the front walkways somehow be meandering, or what was the word that was used, Lynn?
Picturesque.
Picturesque.
Does anybody have a definition of that? Because that sounds like it would vary from individual to individual.
I think that that's a good observation. I think actually, Doug, I would say, I think that the rectilinear layout makes sense. And
Yeah, so,
I'm not
so did
inclined
I, to change it,
And
right?
yeah, it's more in keeping with the,
Well, if somebody gave me a real, like a scientific or a safety reason to change it, I would say, wow. But just picturesque, you know what I mean? Doesn't hold much merit to me in that respect. So I wouldn't change it. And what you're saying, what was there were four things. There was lighting. No, you said they had a concern about the tight tank, that it was too big. Is that what you're saying?
and
that
then
it was
they
too small, actually.
they wanted it bigger. They urged consideration of a larger size.
Okay, that's what it was. But you were going with the recommendations of the Board of Health, who would be permitting it.
Well,
Right.
it sounds like that based on the size of the typical tank truck and the size of the pump of the tank proposed at this point, you've sort of hit the, excuse my pun, the sweet spot.
I thank you, Rick. I think that's correct. It is larger, and it aligns with what a pump
Yeah.
pump is going to be.
So I would go with Paul's recommendation on that one too, but this is just me speaking. And then they wanted the lighting of the parking lot.
Yes, they were concerned about safety and
Well,
with
that now that actually is a little bit legitimate, but during this whole process, this has never come up, and that is a huge concern to neighbors and abutters. So I mean, how much? I don't know. I would have to think about that.
The problem with this public safety complex is that you had lights that were on the building that were projecting out to the lot. And in this
Yep.
case, you'll have a light that's in the lot projecting either towards the building or towards the roadway. So the lighting can be configured a lot differently. And, if you use, full cutoff, as Lynn noted, dark sky respective lighting, you should be able to be really inoffensive.
Okay, as long as we do it something like that, I would go with their recommendation on that.
Yeah.
What about,
But minimal.
this sounds like maybe a just sort of such unimportant, but are we going to replace the flagpole, keep the same one, or that's got lighting and all that too? If we're talking about the outside.
I think we keep the existing, isn't that right?
Yeah, I think we would keep the existing.
I
don't think there's any
would hope
change.
so.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
there's
think
not really, in that front grass area that's currently already, that's not really proposed to change at all.
No.
I mean, it might be pretty up a little bit.
Maybe we could put one of those big flag poles with the cell towers inside.
Is there anything else?
There was, and this, Rick, I think this was your suggestion, if I hear correctly, on this issue of it right now, it's showing a future gas service. Was that something you wanted to discuss?
Sure. Yeah. Certainly some of us have heard of the state legislation relative to carbon neutrality of buildings by 2050. Basically carbon neutrality of everything by 2050. And in my opinion, we should not be putting gas in that building. The building should be all electric. It should have either air source or ground source heat pumps. And that's a topic that we might want to address at some point, although I don't think it's appropriate tonight. But, we should be doing something other than fossil fuels to heat the building, because if we heat the building with fossil fuels, then 30 years from now, we're going to have to completely redo whatever we did, or less than 30 years from now, between now and 2050, we will have to undo what we did and make it right.
So, working with our mechanical engineers, I would be proposing to look at, the cost benefits of the two different fuel sources that are available to us. at the moment. One would be basically electric, as Rick was saying, either ground source or air source, heat pumps, or looking at what it means to do with gas and a combination of gas for fuel and electric for air conditioning. I certainly respect what Rick has just spoken about with carbon neutral goals and requirements. And as I said, you know, the team sat through, you know, a mass save workshop. Of course, it was for much larger buildings, but we certainly understood the intent of what is being proposed.
So when in the design process, Lynn, is a decision like that made, or is the idea that it would be set up in anticipation of a future gas connection? There would be temporary propane tanks, but that wouldn't preclude something like a heat pump? Or just to make sure I'm clear on when the board would need to make a decision on this.
Well, through the design process, quite honestly, which we're initiating with our mechanical engineers now, Angus, you know, the committee, you know, which is loosely you, Wayne.
It's kind of,
Mike.
I mean, it's really this board. Any decision of any importance has to go to this board.
Right. So we would actually review the options first with the building committee and then bring that recommendation to the board. That would make sense, I believe.
I'll just throw something out that Lynn, we haven't discussed with you, and we haven't actually discussed as a board yet. It's actually part of our meeting packet tonight. Is that you know, you had mentioned previously familiarity with the Green Communities program,
right?
And there will be a Green Communities competitive grant round this fall, and included in the eligible items in that program are air source and ground source heat pumps. Now we haven't dug into it at all, and I don't know when that will actually happen, but that may actually be a source of you know, reasonable amount of funding that might be applied to this project. And again, I actually had hoped that you know, this board would have a chance to talk about it before I said anything in, you know, like this conversation, because we haven't talked about it at all. But you know, the town is potentially eligible to apply for up to $200,000. It would probably, if we did apply for the maximum size grant, we would probably include some other things in there. And this is all speculation by me as an individual right now, as opposed to by the board. But, you know, there is a potential source of funding through the Green Communities program that would help considerably towards the thermal needs for this building.
Yeah, you know, I've worked with Green Communities grant funded studies for in the town of Lancaster for a much larger building, the Prescott building, which was converted, a school converted to town offices, about 15,000 square feet. We actually did the analysis for ground source, you know, ground source energy. It's a lot of wells to make that kind of thing work. But to me, what I'm a little, and I know it's always something we need to be open and creative about these kinds of considerations. What has an impact here, though, is the timing of for instance, the Green Communities grant study, which you mentioned is having an autumn deadline, which would mean that grants would be awarded subsequently. We actually are working to move this project into through design and into construction this summer, to start construction this summer. So I just put this out to you as one of the issues that we have to think about in terms of timing. So I guess to return to the analysis of the heating systems, what we are heating and cooling, what we would be looking at with our engineers, Wasney Barber, are what the options are, and then bringing that to the board for review and consideration. And those options will include both the capital cost as well as the operating cost projections.
That sounds like a good way.
Sounds
Rick.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, Rick, I understand what you're saying, but no matter what we put in here, by 2050, we're gonna probably have to change it out anyway. Technology in that respect of new ways of, the new way of doing things is gonna change, I would think, tenfold by the time those deadlines hit us. We'll be changing this no matter what we put in, I would think, to a newer, better, more efficient way of heating and cooling in the next 30 years or 25 years. You know what I mean? There's only a lifetime of any system, no matter what it is, correct?
Well, Glenn, I hear what you're saying, but our response, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but our response as a society is not going to be a light switch. We're not going to, noodle along as we currently are, and then all of a sudden, January 1st, 2050, convert everything we've done.
No, I understand. But no, but you have to.
We need to not be taking steps backward as we're hoping to move forward.
Or not take steps laterally to hopefully move forward. I understand. Okay, it is what it is. Let's just, I think the analysis would be important, wouldn't it? To or not? Or are you saying it doesn't really matter what the analysis is? You want to just go with one way? It doesn't really matter.
My personal opinion is that we shouldn't be considering using fossil fuels, but I'm one out of three on this board. So
no, okay, I got you. I think we should look at everything at least. I mean, I think that way we should do the due diligence for the town.
We have to know what the feasibility of something. Yeah.
I honestly don't have one way or another. I would like to go your way, Rick, if we can, and it's feasible, definitely. Why wouldn't we? But it's all about. I understand. I got it. Let's not get into that.
It's kind of getting down the weeds for right now, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So on the other issues, just so Lynn's clear, and because they're going to submit to the planning board, I believe, like tomorrow or like right away, very soon, to get on for the 16th.
Right, we would like to.
I'm sorry, not tomorrow, like a week from tomorrow.
It's a week, yeah.
Right, sorry about that, yeah. Yeah, sorry, Lynn, didn't mean to scare you.
No, I was really starting to shake my pen here. But we are actually looking to submit on the 9th to get to the meeting on the 16th. And in coordinating with Leah, and so.
So let's make it really simple. What do you need from us? I think we've talked about it, but we haven't had like decision.
We're going to need your signatures on our application.
So on the questions that came up, it sounds like the board's in agreement that the size of the tight tank is going to be whatever the Board of Health recommends or requires it to be. The exterior lighting should be minimal with downward facing and should be carefully, taking into account any potential impact on neighboring properties.
Yep.
The plan should continue to, it sounds like the majority wants to continue to show the future gas service and the temporary propane tanks on the plan. Is that right, Archie? You didn't really weigh in, but I thought I heard that. And then
to this point, yeah.
And that the flagstone walkway should remain in its current configuration.
That's me. That's.
I think those were the questions, Lynn, right?
Those were it.
Okay. Anybody have any disagreement with any of that stuff?
I'm concerned about the particular shade of the flagstones. No.
Okay. Anything else? I'm fading fast here.
Okay.
We're going to be coming to you with 3 different forms that we're putting applications in for. One is for the site plan review. The other is a form that needs to go to the Board of Health for the tight tank application. And then the third one is our determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission.
Mike, could the board vote to authorize me to make those signatures as long as it's.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that.
With the plan that they, I mean, if there was any change to the plan, I would bring it back to you, but if it's consistent with what we're seeing,
Right.
that
I
would
would
save a lot.
I would make that motion. I would make
Yeah.
that motion to give Angus that authority
So-
to sign it.
So
Logistically, it makes it so much easier.
basically is that what I would suggest the motion be, Glenn, is that you approve that the submission of the applications to the planning board, the Board of Health, and to the Conservation Commission in accordance with the plans that have been submitted to you, and authorize the town manager to sign on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lynn and Doug, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Lynn. Thanks, Doug.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you for,
Good night.
good night.
Right.
Great. Thanks. I'm glad we were able to fit that in. That was important. So the next item we have is item J, which is Rick had made us aware that there's an expression of interest due this Friday, the next round of Green Communities grants. So Rick, you want to take the floor?
Yeah, actually, this is not Green Communities grants.
Oh, I'm sorry, MVP grants.
Yeah, it's for the MVP
Good all.
program. This is our first opportunity really to potentially be involved in a program through Green Communities. So, or got me going there, through the MVP process, municipal vulnerability preparedness. In this case, the two issues that, this is strictly, to begin with, this is strictly a letter of interest as opposed to a grant application. And by submitting a letter of interest, it enables the Green Community or the MVP core team to have a conversation with the state's MVP group to discuss and review the ideas that we're considering. And the two ideas are related to invasives control and potentially applying for grants relative to invasives assessment and control. And the other one is essentially roadway hazards due to flooding. Specifically the focus there would, or the primary focus there would be River Road and the bottom ends of Coffin Street and Church Street. I guess technically the MVP group probably didn't even need to request permission, to submit a letter of interest to talk, but it seemed prudent to talk with us as a board to make sure that that we thought it was appropriate.
Rick, so the plan was, I believe, to that there's a warrant article about the having an intern work on the invasives already. So would this be in addition to that, or what's the?
Yeah, exactly, Archie. This would be in addition to this. If you look around town, I mean, and if you really look at what's growing around town, it's pretty apparent that certain invasives are already out of control. And there are various others in town that have a footprint here now. And what we really need to do is arrest them before they're also out of control. You can find, I mean, probably the most offensive are going to be multiflora rose and bittersweet around town. You have knotweed. I mean, there's a handful of other ones that are present, but there are two or three that are prevalent at this point in time and are creating problems. The thought of the article is to fund an intern. The town meeting article would be to fund an intern, or a couple of interns actually, for the summer to do some initial assessment on town-owned properties. But it's really a broad problem and needs a broad strategy to deal with to try to minimize long-term impact.
Okay, yeah, so what would be the actual, so other than assessment, the next step would actually be attempt to do something about it, or we had?
Well, actually, so we have our resident expert, Nancy Powell, on the call with us. And Nancy, do you want to speak up?
Sure. So as Rick said, this is exploratory at this point. We're just putting in a letter of interest, and depending on what the state says will compete well for the grant, we'll put a package together. But right now, the portion that's focused on kind of invasive control and combating invasive actually has a lot of community education and native gardening and landscaping involved in it. So one part of it, as Rick mentioned, is, kind of mapping invasives on town land and getting interns and volunteers out there to control it. A large part of it is also educating town residents, mainly through demonstration gardens. And we have a very active volunteer group that's 15 and growing now. We've identified 6 gardens in town that we want to create demonstration gardens at, like at Mill Pond and Town Hall and a bunch of other areas, potentially the new high school. So this would provide the plant material. It would be a whole kind of a suite of presentations and guided walks to educate people about why it's important to have natives and to try to combat invasives. So it's both, and the grant is mostly to pay for plant material, printing of flyers, speaker fees for the folks that we are bringing in. We've actually already lined up our first speaker, Doug Talamy, who is a pretty famous professor from Delaware that's leading this effort. And a couple groups in town has already stepped up to pay for his fee. But we want to draw in a bunch of kind of well-known speakers, as well as the people in town that are also going to be volunteering their time and expertise, just to draw in more people and create more excitement.
So I'd make a motion that we would apply for the grant.
Okay, so at this point in time, we wouldn't actually be applying for a grant. This is simply to submit a letter of interest.
Oh, okay. So then that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer, actually.
Yeah,
we're losing a lot of our native stuff. I mean, it must be bittersweet, but this side of West Newbury, my yard across the street, I'm fighting back these vines and the stuff that's just taking over my whole job.
All over the place.
No.
Yeah, and there actually, so there are 2 different topics. There was what Nancy just spoke about, and then there's also the issue of flood, river flooding and.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, roadway flooding and so.
Well, that would be foolish if we didn't do that, because that's only going to get worse.
Yeah, so this is, essentially, this will be money to assess the issue, to try to project out based on current sea level rise, climate change related sea level rise projections, and start to think about how do we deal with this long term, because if we don't, then at some point we're going to lose River Road. I mean, we're going to have significant problems down the road if we don't try to think about them now.
Without a doubt. So my motion would be then to send 2 letters of interest for both topics.
Second that.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye, but quick discussion. Do we, it's due on Friday. Can have Angus sign it? Do we have to go in and sign it? How's that going to work? Just so I don't mess up.
This comes from the MVP group. Is that correct, Nancy, from your understanding?
It's a very informal process. It's just a web form, so there's no signature required.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I did my part if I had to.
The point was that, we thought it was important that the selectmen understand what's going on and that we're all on board.
Sounds good.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy?
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nancy.
And Rick.
Okay, Rick.
We're here anyway.
Okay, just drag me along. I don't.
Okay, next, final few things, a quick update on the paid school playground.
Mike and Wayne have been hard on the scope. There's going to be an RFQ issued a week from today with a due date we anticipate of March 22nd. So that's going to allow us to select based on qualifications and then work with the selected vendor to finalize the design for contracting.
Does anybody know how the question thing came? You know, the thing they were hosting. How did that work out?
Well, so the first one is this Wednesday. The second one's next Monday. And that really arose out of, I reached out to Dustin around the first of the year, the principal, and I said, between drawing up an RFQ, awarding a contract, executing a contract, all of that, that pretty much is like all we can do bandwidth wise. And so I said, we really want public input. And I've been briefing various committees regularly in this board, but we just don't have the bandwidth to put together like a real public engagement. So his office, working with a parents group, offered to do that, which is great. So they're doing that basically in parallel with us.
Angus, so I was trying to understand what was going on. So the people applying to the RFQ, they're actually, it talks about design, but they're actually going to make the thing too, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's like a design build process. So that's what's made it a little challenging from a procurement standpoint.
Because I'm thinking this is $350,000 just to design it. That's
No. No, that's the full.
Okay.
So, just as it has been right along, one of the key decisions is going to be the type of surfacing and the cost implications of that. And the civil engineer who we have separately under contract can't finalize the stormwater design until a decision is made regarding what type of surface is going to be used. So.
Okay. All right. Bridge.
So the bridge, we did get correspondence. So a couple of things. They had their initial meeting, separate meetings with both West Newbury and Newburyport Concoms. They had a joint site visit. I believe that was last Sunday. Might have been 2 Sundays ago. I lose track of time, but it was recently. Something that arose from the Newburyport Concom is their expectation that there be additional stormwater pretreatment built into the design of the bridge rather than the country drainage, which currently is in place. And so BSC reached out to us recently saying that would have cost implications, including for the design and permitting. And so they have asked that both the Concoms continue their hearings so they can take some additional time. They sent BSC, the engineer, sent myself and Wayne and John Eric White, the city engineer, a fee proposal of what they think it's going to cost to build this into the design. So I talked to John Eric last week. Neither he nor I really had the time to really dig into it in detail. So we haven't. I think we're going to talk this week. We'll just have to find the time for that. We have not yet authorized BSC to do that additional work because it's going to cost about $40,000 in additional engineering work.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So if you'd like, I could put this on with a more detailed briefing a week from tonight. But
well, that's engineering. So can you imagine what it's going to cost after it's engineering?
No, it could be. I mean, you guys are familiar with these storm scepter things, right? These things the size of trailer trucks.
Yeah.
That's, John Eric has said he doesn't want a storm scepter, but it could be, in terms of like scope, could be something like that.
Well, anything that goes from country drain to whatever you just explained to us, I was like saying in my head, when you say, oh, they don't like the country drain, they want the blah, 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 blah. I went, oh my God, it's going to be a lot of money.
I want to know why the Newburyport Water Commission, or whatever it is, doesn't have authority over what's going in the water rather than Newburyport's Conservation Commission.
Well, and I don't know if it's an authority thing so much as if you're in front of a regulatory entity and they ask for something, whether they legally can require that or not, you as the applicant and we as the town as the applicant we're the ones there on bended knee looking for a permit.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
are they overstepping their bounds is what I'm saying.
I don't know yet. I don't know
Yeah,
yet.
but I think what Angus just said, if they are or not, you're asking for the permit. So sometimes they do overstep their bound so you can get a permit. And that's not unique. I'm not saying that's unique to Newburyport. That's unique to all.
No, you're exactly right. Yep.
So why don't you come back with a little bit more of an explanation on
The
that?
water department should be more concerned about what's going in the water than the Conservation Commission. Because it's water.
I talked to John Eric last week, and we both agree. He reached out to me and he basically called me and he said, I don't have time to look at this. Let's talk next week. So I said, okay, that works for me too. I mean, we talked a little bit more than that, but.
Well, when you're talking to them, let's find out through now and then how much real regulatory yes or no they have, or is this one of these things that would like to have the walkway look more beautiful?
All right, so I'll put this on for next week. I'll have a call with John Eric, and Wayne will be part of that, and I'll see if Wayne or John Eric, for that matter, could be part of the discussion, just so we can understand. Because just the discussion earlier tonight with Soldiers and Sailors, this board is the applicant or the co-applicant. So before or I should say your design engineer, BSC, starts making changes, you as the client need to sign off on that. So that's really.
I'm being slightly facetious here, but Rick would agree that in 10 years, there's going to be 50% of the vehicles going over that are going to be electric vehicles, right, Rick? So there's going to be
less reason to have oil and all that on the roadway to mitigate.
Less chemical drainage into the water.
Next thing on the agenda?
Just saying.
Rick, you're on mute.
I'm with you, Archie.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm going to be driving my Tesla truck over that.
$15, you still have a bow tie on.
Next thing, I think I've mentioned this, but we did last week supply the data to Merrimack for their wage study, kind of just under the wire time-wise. What that means is that when they're done their study, they're going to provide, their consultant's going to provide it to us and provide their backup, meaning all the data they've got from different towns. So it won't cost us anything other than the time it took to put together the data, which was several hours. But anyhow, we did it, and that's going to give us some good data on how our wages in various departments stack up within the region. So I just wanted to make you aware that that's continued to go forward.
Good.
Item O, we continue to be kind of chasing our own tail with these CARES Act. If we're not reporting on estimated and projected expenses, we're reporting on quarterly reports on how we've actually spent the money. So it's a seemingly nonstop cycle of reporting, and that's before you even get into FEMA. So at the time we posted the agenda Thursday, we believed that the reconciliation report, which is going to be an absolutely huge amount of work for my office, was going to be due this coming Friday. Fortunately, on Friday afternoon, they postponed that into later this spring. I don't believe they even set a time. So that was huge good news for us, because I really do not know how we were going to get it done for this Friday. It's a huge administrative effort these CARES funds come with. But we had a really productive meeting earlier today, myself, Stephanie, and Jenny, and I think we've got a very good handle on our next quarterly report, which is a week from Friday. So we are keeping up with that, but that's part of what's keeping us busy, for sure.
Is the money worth it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I had to say that, you know what I mean?
No, it's a good question, Glenn, and yeah, it's a good question. It's just, if we were a sleepy little town, it'd be no problem, but we're doing so much. And so anyhow, no, this is in the needs, not wants. It's definitely worth it.
Okay.
Other active projects, we signed the contract for the ADA transition plan. So Sam Jocelyn is really heading that up. He already had the kickoff meeting with the vendor last week and has sent out correspondence to different facility owners, the library, Wayne, and so forth. So they're moving ahead with that. And once the weather gets nice, they'll coordinate the evaluation of outdoor sites with the open space committee and Bert in his role with trails.
Angus, let me ask you one quick question about that. So we get this report, and now we have a report that says, okay, just to pick some, the public safety
Building is deficient.
bathrooms have an issue. So now that we have been informed of said problem, are we in? Sometimes, not knowing about a problem is unless someone has complained about it, you don't have to address it. But now that it's been brought forward,
It's not as blissful
we have to address these immediately.
No, I thought Sam said you didn't. You asked that question, I think, when Sam was in here to do this. And you asked that before, Archie. And Sam said, you don't have to do it. You start picking away at it, I think.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you have to be working toward it. And so there's two things to point out. One is that if someone points it out tomorrow, if someone comes in and writes a complaint that we're out of compliance, whether we knew about it or not, if that gets architectural access board.
I know that.
Yeah. So they can shut down our facility. But secondly,
but if you do it this way, they can't shut down your facility because you're working towards it. That's
exactly. So basically, the part of how we're looking at this is right now we made so much progress with our capital planning, and we have a really good capital planning document that's getting better all the time. And right now, and so we want to, if there are issues that we don't know about that are going to cost money, we want to get those on the capital program, and that way we can at least say, it's on the program. It's not all going to get done overnight.
But we're not looking for trouble, is what?
No, we're not. But we don't want, if there's investments that we need to be made, we want those to be on equal footing with the things we do know about, like boilers and roof replacements, because these are needs as well. So if we're not paying attention to them, then they're not really getting fair treatment, fair consideration relative to other projects that are getting funded through the capital process.
Okay.
So we're going to be in better shape on the end of this.
An analogy, Archie, would be like if we had an affordable housing plan, and if we were following our plan, then 40B couldn't come in. So if we identify this and then start picking away at it, somebody can't close down a building because we're not in compliance.
Oh, yes, they can. They can still say that this stair is not accessible. I wasn't able to get in and talk to the assessor. They could say that.
Well, give me a call. I'll do anything I can. Lift them up.
Okay.
Got it. Anything else?
We're moving toward a contract for the HVAC system control upgrade. Although I included some draft contracts. We're not there yet, but I believe Mike's got a call with the vendor tomorrow.
Yeah, we're all set on that. I mean,
okay,
we're
good.
just going to straighten it up, and we'll have that all signed up by tomorrow.
Good. Any mention about when the buildings are going to start opening up again?
I don't have any updated information on that.
I mean, maybe do we start thinking about it in some months rather
I
than?
guess. I mean, right
You know what I
now,
mean?
you know, with the vaccinations and some other things, like everything I talked to Paul about is pretty much all vaccinations, and we're just
Okay, people are just starting to ask because they see stuff on the news about vaccines and, you know, down 70%, you know what I mean? So the questions are going to start out there, like, when's the library going to open again? So I'm not saying we should start talking about it next week, maybe even not the next meeting, but there's got to be maybe some plan at least.
Well, Glenn,
If-
also, we probably have to factor in the, you know, what phase we're in and
Yeah. I understand. If things go,
certain things we can't even do on our own. Yeah.
I understand that, but I'm saying that projected, maybe, you know, people sometimes just like to plan or hear that we're heading in some type of direction. You know, if these certain benchmarks
Hey, Glenn,
get
tell
met.
them 4 months. Tell them 4 months.
Well, Biden just told everybody Christmas the other day. So, and people, I think that's when people started saying, "Oh my God," so, whatever. Okay, you got it. I don't have to worry about it anymore soon. I'm just passing along stuff I'm hearing, so we don't. Whatever. Okay. Anything else?
I had one last thing under sort of new business, maybe, and so I'm looking for grins here. I mentioned to Angus that on an email from Mass DOER a couple of weeks ago, there's a program supported by Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, for what are called fast DC chargers. This is, you know, what we're putting in, what's already in at Page School and will in a month or two be completed at the 1910 building is what's called a level 2 charger that essentially charges at like 220 volts. That's the same that comes into your house, same voltage. But these fast DC chargers are able to charge full electric vehicles much more rapidly. You know, they'll give you, I don't know, 100 miles in an hour or something, or in a half an hour or something like that, 100 miles around, you know, they charge much more rapidly. And so Mass DEP has a program where they're offering for municipalities, for publicly available government-owned properties up to $50,000 to install a charger. I'm not saying that it's something that we should do, but I think it's something that we should maybe apply, and I'll carry most of the burden here. We should maybe apply for it. We probably will not qualify at this point in time because they're really looking primarily at transportation corridors. That was what I was told, at least by Lori Timmerman, who is our rep from National Grid. And I'm not sure that our site at the 1910 building, even though they're putting in a new transformer to support the new chargers, it might not be capable of supporting it. But at the next meeting, I hope to have a little bit more information. Maybe we can just talk about it. It may be a non-starter, but you know, I'm just thinking we ought to be looking out into the future for, you know, what do we want to target for the future.
Well, I would agree with that, Rick, right? If you're going to take the brunt of it, because we're not even getting,
and I will.
We're not even getting what the president has done, because of how busy it is. So,
yeah.
Of course, I mean, it's always smart, and maybe we don't qualify, but they know their interest. So next time, oh, West Newbury already applied. Maybe like in 2 years, you will be able to get it because we applied this time. It didn't get it. Sometimes those grants happen that way.
That's sort of my thought is show interest now and maybe later, which perhaps would be more opportune for us, maybe then we appear to be a viable candidate. But
I couldn't support it if it's going to make more work to our town people at this point, when this would be something that couldn't have any fruition for 5 years. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
But I would agree. Yeah. The thing that I wouldn't mind putting on is we had talked about this as a board before Rick and Archie, that even before Wayne was DPW director, that local people, Mike, you might remember this, local people get not preference, but we give a hard look at local people for town contracts before we kind of set them out for plowing, for construction, for anything. Obviously, we can't do that for more money or anything like that, but just if apples are apples, that we should be considering town people before non-town people. I don't know how. So I wouldn't mind. That was kind of a policy or unwritten policy that we had before, but I don't think that's being met now. Maybe it just was one of those things that never gotten written down, like a lot of these selectmen policies just kind of went by the wayside. But I wouldn't mind considering that in the future in some more formal thing, if it's possible.
Well, that makes sense. So I'm just curious, like I'm trying to imagine, are we, is plowing an example, Glenn? Is that where?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we're not awarding plowing contracts.
Yeah, well, some people say, hey, I'd like to plow for the town. They say, well, sorry, the list is too long, but the list is all out of town people. You know what I mean? So if it's apples for apples, I think we should be using town people, not at lesser work or, but you know what I mean? We're taking our tax money that we should and even with there's a lot of construction people in town. We get stuff done in town. So I would prefer that. Some type of policy.
It's always nice to know who hit your mailbox.
Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a problem with that. And
I knew there would be.
You still have to follow the procurement laws. And some municipalities in Massachusetts have tried that, particularly New Bedford, tried to put in basically
you told me
requirement that so many percentage of your workers had to be from New Bedford,
and then the unions got involved.
That's correct, and they basically have ruled that would be a violation of the procurement laws to have that.
But isn't it up to a certain amount of money?
Up to $10,000, you have to use reasonable business efforts. But I mean, I don't think that they would consider that to be a reasonable business effort to, kind of a preference that would have somebody. But as you pointed out, is if everything is equal, it's up to the discretion of the person awarding the contract.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think we'd have to Glenn, it probably was not written down because
you couldn't write it down.
But you can have the intent in the back of people's mind. There's no problem with that.
You can always do select alphabetically, where you look at the you start from the back of the alphabet and use the town.
There you go.
Only from towns with 2 words in the town. Yeah.
It seems like the more we talk, the more we're setting somebody up to sue us when we start doing this, actually. Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.